Darren Jones. I'm a lobbyist for the National Rifle Association. First of all, I'd like to thank the chairman and members of this committee for affording us the opportunity to voice our position on some of these bills, particularly affording Mr. Sicoscio a lengthy period of time to break down these bills. So I'm going to keep my testimony very, very brief. They are our state association, so our positions are the same. We collaborated on analyzing this bill, so there's no need for me to individually go through these bills. I just want to hit some of the high points. And for what it's worth, Mr. Chairman, I appreciate you extending the latitude to us, and so I've asked some of our folks to reciprocate and to keep their testimony very short, don't repeat points, don't tell war stories. So to anybody that's listening, the night's going to be long. I thank you, and hopefully that's our repayment. So
thank you. That's greatly appreciated.
There is one point I'm going to repeat that's been said by folks on our side, and that is we abhor the notion of domestic violence, the occurrence of domestic violence, and there's one thing we all agree on, and that's that someone who is a violent domestic abuser should be harshly punished. That goes without question. Our only opposition on this, and our only opposition, is we all know that there are a rare number of cases, a small number of cases, where there's a false accusation made or someone's actually innocent. And the law needs to protect everyone equally. And so we usually look at these bills and look for two things. One, is there due process? And two, is there a rights restoration process? And both of these bills seem to come up short. Now, the other thing that is a glaring, and this point hasn't been made yet, is that not only is this stuff on the books, state and federal, but I didn't have to dig very far. December 10th of 2015, here's a case right here. I'll only read two sentences. This was in Providence. It was in the Providence Journal on December 10th. This whole case, he was arrested and brought to the station where he was charged with one count of domestic disorderly conduct. Police seized 3 weapons from the home, a Springfield .45, a Walther PPK, and a Smith & Wesson .357 revolver. All right, so what that tells me is that currently the cops, standard operating procedure, they go to the place, there's a domestic dispute to the home, the residence, they arrest the guy, they charge him. So I don't see where there's a big problem in either state or federal law where domestic abusers have firearms. The current law gives the tools to take them away. So that, obviously, all the domestic violence bills we have concerns with. We've voiced those before. The other bill that I was going to hit on was the youth possession bill, 7535, that Ms. Limbeck covered. She did say that that bill's been introduced for 13 years. I know for at least 6 years of those. I've said the same thing at the microphone, and I'll take it back. It's the second thing I'm going to repeat. I've always asked how many cases get thrown out where this is a problem, and I've just never seen the compelling evidence, and I've asked that question for 6 years. And Ms. Limbeck also raised some of the other questions that I've raised, so I won't re-raise them, which takes us to the magazine issue. It's probably one of the hottest issues that people get fired up about. It's a serious issue. The one new point that I would raise is that the New York SAFE Act, which was passed in 2013, imposed an even more draconian magazine limit down to 7. Now, the Western District Court in Buffalo, New York, struck that down as arbitrary and unconstitutional, and that was upheld on appeal. So the SAFE Act stood in New York, but it's interesting that the magazine portion of it was the only portion that was overturned in the courts. Now, what that has done is that has set up in the lower courts some disagreement on this issue, on magazine capacity restrictions. And as a result of that, this may be something that eventually finds its way to the Supreme Court. But we are fundamentally opposed to magazine restrictions for one simple reason. And I'll lay this scenario out, and all you have to do is think about it. The next Columbine, the next Aurora shooting, the next Sandy Hook, these are tragedies, unquestionable tragedies. But every time passing a law isn't the answer, because the next time one of these madmen go into one of these places, do you think that they're going to say, I'm going in there with a 10-round magazine? They're not going to do that. And so the whole argument posed by the other side about, well, we're going to jump them when they're reloading, it's not going to happen because they're going into some of these schools with Propane tanks, illegal. They're going there to commit murder, illegal. They've stolen the firearms, illegal. They bought them through some of these guys have broken 10, 15, 20 laws. And another law isn't going to stop any of that. And like I said, all of our positions on these bills mirror the state association, so I'm not going to hit them point by point. And wrapping up, I'm going to make one final statement. And that's generally on gun control in the history of this country. If you go back to the first one, the Sullivan Act in 1911, it was a response to something. The Gun Control Act of 1934, it was a response to prohibition. It did stuff like get rid of silencers and short-barreled shotguns, etc. Gun Control Act of 1968, it addressed the political assassinations, Kennedy, King, and Kennedy Jr. The Brady Act was a response to President Reagan getting shot. The Nixon Improvement Act was a response to Virginia Tech. And here we sit again, willing to pass another law. And we know that these laws are ineffective because the other side keeps saying, well, just one more law, just one more law. What's the problem with that? The problem with that is you're eventually going to turn every law-abiding citizen, gun owner in this state into a criminal, just like they've done in New York, just like they've done in Connecticut, where the compliance, by the way, is, I think it was 4% on the registration of assault weapons in New York, because you can only take so much. We've passed so many gun control laws, there really isn't much left. And every time there's another one of these responses, well, we'll be back here debating again. With that, Mr. Chairman, with that, members of the committee, thank you for indulging me and my colleagues. And my support was clearly outlined here and in the letter I sent you. Thank you. I'd entertain questions if you have them.